Hey guys, welcome back to another weekly focus. I hope you had a great day. So today we'll just go through the trades I had for this week, and once we're done looking at the trades I had for this week, I'm going to show you guys what I have prepared for next week. So let's start with the trade recap. So I'm going to pull this up right here. Alright, so let's look at the gold position. So if you remember, I did update you guys on this gold position. So I'm just going to show you, like, from here. I did this already last week. We had this buys on gold, and when I did the update last week, I just told you guys where my stop loss was at, and I think it was around this point. I'd secured about 1.3% or something. That's if I'm correct. I don't know what point I actually did the update for you guys, but we secured about 1.3% at this point, and as price moved to the upside progressively, we kept securing more profit. Here was just say 1.84% secured, and at this point I had 2.1% secured. So I just kept moving my stop loss with the structure price was giving me. I think that was on the hourly or the 4-hour time frame, and right here we had 3.3% secured on this position, and eventually price just reversed today to stop me out on the gold position. So right now my gold position is finally closed, and I'm going to wait. I'll do the analysis today and see what's popping up and just see what's building up for next week. So that's it for gold. Let's look at NAS100. So with NAS100, it's just the same thing to what I told you guys already. If you look at the video from last week, you realize I was also moving my stop loss on this one. So we had a buy position on NAS100. I think I can show you guys. We had this on the 11th of September, and I told you the entry on NAS100 wasn't the best. I didn't have the best entry, and I had a very wide stop loss. That wasn't the best entry for me, but currently, let's say I've secured about 0.73%. That's close to like 1%. So it's not bad compared to what we've made on gold already. 3.3, adding this one, that's almost 4% up already after managing it. And similarly with the S&P, if you look at the S&P again, the S&P and NAS, I always have similar trades. So the entry on S&P as well, it wasn't a good one. I told you guys last week, a very wide stop loss. So at this point I've secured 1% already. So my stop loss is at this point, and 1% has been secured on the S&P trade already. So I think combining this, the gold trade, NAS trade, and the S&P will up 5%. So all the losses we had, I think the week before last, everything has been covered already with this trade. So that's actually a good one. And lastly, I think BTC. So with BTC, I remember letting you guys know I was in on the buy right here. I did move my stop loss just to secure about 0.28%, and currently price has moved again. So I'm going to revisit this one just to see if there is any structure I can work with to move my stop loss again to secure more profit. So right now we have about 0.28% secured on this. If this reverses, I'm not losing anything. Worst case scenario, I'll come out with 0.28% on this one. So that's it for the trade recap. And let's just go to the main business of the day, like the most interesting one, and that's analyzing the pairs. So we're going to start with the DXY, the first pair we look at, and we'll start on the daily time frame. So I'll make this bigger like this, and a quick look on the DXY. So when I look at the DXY, the first thing I like to do is just have an overall look on what's happening on price. So if you look at this, price made lows, and every time you have a low, there's a pullback with price making new lows. So currently you can look at this and say that's a trend you want to work with. That's still correct, but currently what I'm working with is this piece of price action right here. So the reason this is my focus is because we look at trend lines a little bit different, and so as I said before, you might look at this as the overall trend line. I didn't draw that properly. You might look at this as an overall trend line, but I look at it differently. So with my analysis and everything, I'm not going to go deep into that. I understand prices made these lows, we had the pullbacks, and we had this area taken out. So I have a trend line here, and that's a trend line I'm working with. So I'll move progressively to lower time frames to see what's happening, but let's look at the daily time frame and just understand what's happening. So in as much as we understand prices moving to the downside, making lower lows and lower highs, once we got to an area like this and you look at this, I consider this as a range. So price did range within this area, and once we had this area tested, price did another range thing in here. So we've had two ranges within this entire move to the downside, and that's a little bit concerning, because when price is ranging, it makes it difficult for those other pairs to move. And within this consolidation, you have periods when price is moving to the upside, and you have periods when price is moving to the downside. So when this price is moving to the upside during a consolidation, you're expecting other pairs to be selling, and when it's moving to the downside, you're expecting other pairs to be buying. That's pairs are negatively correlated to the DXY, and it's going to keep doing the same thing. When it's buying, those other pairs will be selling, and when it's selling, those other pairs will be buying. So when I trade a range on the DXY, this is what I'm expecting. So on the daily time frame, currently we've had this level taken out, and I have this trend line put right here, and that's the trend line I'm working with. So the first thing I like to ask myself is, what levels are we looking at, and what levels are we trading off of, and where do I think price is most likely going to navigate to? So if I expand this, and I think for a couple of days now, let me look at this real quick. We've been trading, I think, how many days already? That's 32 days. So we've been in this area for 32 days. So we've been trading within this area for 32 days, and that's a lot. Normally you should expect a month of price action to actually trend and do stuff like that, but when you look at it critically, you can tell we've been ranging. So that's it. So within this area, first thing, I'm looking at my psychological levels, and the level I'm looking at, I mentioned this last week, I had a 50-50 chance here, because we had this range in here, we had this reaction from the buyers, we had this reaction from the sellers. So I did mention I had a 50-50 chance on this, and the reason I had a 50% chance on this to go to either side is because we had this range within this area. So once price is ranging, it's going to pick its direction and then break out maybe to the downside or break out to the upside. And I couldn't really tell with all certainty where this price was headed to. So currently we had price testing 101. So price has not been able to go above 101. We've had this area tested, but price hasn't gone through, and sellers still seem to be interested in this, and that's why we have these sales coming in. We took out this area and pulled back to test this area of the trend line of the psychological level. That was 101. We didn't go through 101, and we took out this low, and this was a shallow break, and we've taken out this low. So when you look at it, so when you zoom in to this piece of price action and you look at it like closely, you realize even though we're struggling and even though we're ranging, first we're having a range, but within this range we've taken out this lows right here, and within this range here we've also taken out, so we have another range here, and we've also taken out this lows right here. So there is still a possibility for these prices to move to the downside and test 100, which is the psychological level right here. And if this doesn't happen, then you could see a possibility where price breaks out of the trend line. So this trend line I'm looking at, once we break out of this trend line, we should be testing an area like 101, and an inability to go through this area, we could see a pullback again, coming back and maybe testing 100. Or if we have an impulsive move, we could see prices break out of this area, most likely test an area like this, try to sell, and then you see prices moving to the upside. So that's what I'm looking at on the DXY, and I'm going to use lower time frames just to see if there's anything that makes sense. So what I'm going to do is I'll put this trend line on lower time frames as well, so 8 hours and maybe the 4 hours, and just keep it at the 4 hours. I don't want to see it on the daily, on the hourly. So let's look on the 8-hour time frame and see. All right, cool. So now on the 8-hour time frame, trust me, when you're trading in a range, it's very messy. Like, so you have these lows right here. Let's see. So you have these lows right here, you have these lows right here. So these are pullbacks for price to take out these lows. You had another pullback for price to take out this low. You had this pullback that came in consolidated right here, but eventually we took out these lows. So when you move from the daily to the 8-hour, the 4 hours and the hourly time frame progressively, you start seeing the details that, like, you start seeing every piece of the price action, and it just starts making sense. So in as much as we're having a consolidation, we still have prices selling. We still have prices selling. So that's something I'm really interested in looking at right now. So this for me is still a move to the downside. Where is the next level price is most likely going to test? It has to be 100, which is the next psychological level for me. So if we're trading within this area and price cannot go past this point, so price has tried a couple of times and it couldn't go past this point, the next level price has to test has to be the 100 level, which is this psychological level right here. So that's what I'm looking at on this time frames, and I'm still going to, what I'm going to do is clean this and we'll look at lower time frames. So I'll go down to say the 4 hours. Now let me put this on the 4 hour. So the 4 hours and the 8-hour time frame, there's really not much of a difference, and I'm going to put this trend line as well on the hourly, and I'll show you something. So the 4 hours and the 8 hours, there's really no difference, but something I'm really interested in is this piece of price action right here, and I'll probably step down to the hourly time frame to see what's happening. So if you just look at it, if you just look at this, there is a move here, there is a push, and then there is a move. So I believe on the hourly time frame you should see a trend, a minor trend within that area that took out this area right here, and I'll look at it just to understand what's happening. But overall from the bigger point of view, we had price ranging. From a bigger point of view, we had price ranging, and we had another range right here. So we've had consolidations leading to consolidation, so that's something to pay attention to. So I'm going to step down to the hourly time frame, and let's see on the hourly time frame. All right, cool. So this is the trend line. This is the trend I'm talking about, and it's not the best. It's not the best. So just bear with me. So remember, when we trading from one psychological level to the next, so if we trading from 101 and we expect prices to move all the way to 100 flat, we should expect a trend on the lower time frame, and this is what I'm looking at. So here you had a move, you had a pullback, this area got taken out. Now you had this massive sales right here, we had a pullback, we had this area taken out as well, we've had massive sales again, and we've had a pullback. So we should expect this area to get taken out. So just looking at it from the hourly time frame, you can tell this is what's happening. I'm going to clean this and make it look a little bit better. So let's do something like this. So I'm going to keep this on the 4 hour time frame and all the way to the daily, the way we can place, let's say we'll place a trend line here. I can do something like this. So this is what I'm working with right now on the DXY. Once this gets violated, then I know the sales are probably coming to an end. So I'm going to focus on this, and this is how I'll treat the DXY right now. So I'm looking at these sales, I'm looking at the pullback area taken out, massive sales, again pullback, this area taken out, massive sell, there's a pullback, and this could probably range a little bit, taps here or just wicks out of this area, and then eventually you see sales coming in. The target for me on the hourly has to be an area like this. But overall, if you're going from one cycle level to the next psychological level, once we clear this area, then we should expect prices to test an area like 100 flat. So I still have this, I'll say, in as much as we're ranging on the daily and stuff like that, I still have this buyers on there on the DXY for prices to drop to 100 flat. And unless this trend gets violated, unless this trend gets taken out, I'll still keep this bearish bias. And trust me, there's a possibility as well we can get a violation on this, and that's because, let me show you, because there's always two sides to the coin. There's always two sides to the coin, and I think I mentioned this already. So when we're looking at this, and because we've had consolidation after consolidation, so let's say we do this, so we've had consolidation after consolidation. So what happens in a consolidation? So this is another thing to pay attention to. So once you have a consolidation like this and price gets to the bottom here, you should expect buys to come in as well. So you see at the bottom part of it, we're expecting buys, and this was a clear indication that some sales will come in, because every time we had this area tested, we had prices, every time we had this area tested, we had this massive move, this massive, this, and it just went halfway, and that was a drop that came in. So that's another thing to pay attention to. So now I'm looking at this area, I'm looking at this area as a range as well, and what you should expect in the range, at top of this area you see prices moving to the upside, here you see prices moving to the upside. So if so right now we've had this area tested as well. If it's not able to take prices all the way to 101, this could be an indication that sales will still come in to test 100 flat. So there's a lot you can look at when price is ranging. There's just a lot of concepts you can bring in, and that's why I say there's two sides to the coin. So I still have a bearish bias for the DXY to test 100 flat, but there's a possibility for the DXY to buy all the way to 100, and trust me, this thing can buy again to 101. It can buy to 101, and we're just looking at this on the hourly time frame. I've made the analysis already on the daily as well. So you're looking at an area like this. So here, so once you had prices here, you had this taken out like this, or I can put something like this even. So you had this, you had prices to the upside, you had this, you had prices to the upside. So we've had this, and you should expect this to get a violation of this trend line, and you see prices moving back to 101. And if this happens at 101, then you should expect sales to come in again, and this range is going to keep, so it's going to stay intact unless something happens, unless a decision comes in where buyers and sellers reserve, and then price is going to pick its direction. So that's how I look at ranges, just like superficially, without going deep. There are other things I look at when I'm working with ranges, but just looking at it superficially like this and combining it with what I showed you already, the psychological levels, this is something I'll pay attention to. A possibility of a price to test 101, and this possibility to continue with these sales and drop all the way to 100 flat. So what happens, like when the resolution happens on this range, it's going to tell a lot on how the DXY is going to move. So that's it for the DXY. Now let's keep this on the DXY. So let's keep these possibilities on the DXY. So remember, I'm going to keep this possibilities. So the first possibility on the DXY, there's two sides to the coin. It's a breakout of this area and a test of 101 right here. So this is possibility number one, and this arises from the range we're working with. Now possibility number two, we have a trend within this area. If this trend doesn't get violated, you could see a test of an area like this and a possible move to the downside. So this right here is possibility number two. Now I'm going to use this to analyze other pairs. So going off of this range that's forming here, if this buy is coming, you should expect pullbacks in other pairs, and I think gold already has started pulling back, so that could be an early sign for this to go to the upside. So now there's other pairs I'm looking at that's aligned into possibility number two. So let's look at the first pair. So I'm going to look at US30. We'll clean this. So let's look at US30, and let's start from the daily time frame. Now looking at US30 from the daily time frame, this is very easy to analyze, and I don't think we'll be spending a lot of time on this one. So the first thing is, how is price moving on the daily time frame on US30? This right here, price made a high, there was a pullback giving us this low, price has made a higher high. So what do you expect when price is trending? You expect prices to make higher highs and higher lows, higher highs and higher lows, to continue in that direction. So once you look at it this way, we should expect prices at some point to come back and have a test of this area. Now pay attention to how this candles close also on the daily time frame. If this candle closes as a rejection like this candle, so we've had a bounce off of 42,000 and price went up, but if it rejects, this could be an early sign for prices to pull back to an area like this. So that's something I'm looking at on the daily time frame. So currently we're sitting above this psychological level right here of 42,000. So if we cannot, so we've had a move above 42,000, we've had prices testing 42,000. So normally you should expect this. So I'm going to put the next psychological level, and all I'm going to do is just edit this one. So let's edit this one. So that was 42,000. So the next one should be 43, like right here. So what you should be expecting, or what you should see in a situation like this, you should expect prices to get to this area right here of 43,000. And that's because we've had this pullback, we took out these highs, we went through 42,000, and this is the daily time frame. We went through 42,000, we tested 42,000. So normally when you look at the 8-hour time frame and the 4-hour time frame, there is a trend in here. So normally that trend should be able to hold and for prices to test 43,000. But looking at this on the daily time frame, it seems like a rejection. So if this candle closes in the next 2 hours, closes like this with this wick to the upside and all of this, it just tells you the sellers are probably coming in. And if these sellers are coming in, this could be an early sign for prices to pull back to an area like this. And if that happens, now remember what's happening on the DXY again. If that happens, remember this scenario number one, we had this range. Scenario number one, we had this range. We had this range. Going off of this, we should expect prices to come back and test 101. So that's it. So that could be an early sign when you look at US30 for sales to come in. So even if we step down to lower time frames, the story remains the same. So let's look at the 8-hour time frame. All right, cool. So looking at it from the 8-hour time frame right here, so there are many signs already. So I'm going to show you this. So first things first, this is a trend line on the 8-hour time frame I was working with, just to track the movement to the upside and to see where price or the buyers find it difficult to take prices again to the upside. So we had this trend line, we had a break of this trend line, and then we had buyers attempting again. Now this seems to be a rejection from the sellers, and this right here could be an early sign of a pullback to come in. So that's something I'm really looking at and I'm paying attention to. So once this pullbacks start coming in, this is what I'll be interested in. I want to see how price is going to react at the 42,000 level. We could take out these lows and keep moving. So everything that happens now, and let's say early into next week, it's going to make a lot of sense to me. But going off of the DXY as well, I'll pay attention to the DXY, because that's going to tell me a lot on what's happening on US30 and stuff like that. So how do we even get involved with a trade on US30? So I'll come back and show you how to get involved, but let's look at, say, the 4-hour time frame. Let's say the 4-hour time frame. Alright, so the 4-hour time frame, same thing. There's nothing much to look at. So we had price bouncing off of this trend line, off of this psychological level. We had this drop, this level was really respected, and we had prices moving to the upside. So I was looking at this pair yesterday in the night with a member of mine in the community, and we was just laughing because there was a setup in here we saw for a sell, and we didn't take this setup for the sellers because we had to take these sells to test the psychological level and this, so we could still buy and stuff like that. But we didn't take these sells because we had to look at, say, the DXY and other things, and it helped us just to stay away from this. So there's a lot you can pick from price action, so I'm not going to go deep into that, but let's continue with this. So how do you get involved in a situation like this? So right now on the 4-hour time frame, price is bouncing off of this psychological level, and you should expect these prices to continue to the upside and test 43,000. So I'm going to show you what to do, or how I'll look at it. So now this trend line is not of importance to me. So this trend line right here, this is completed already, so I can take this off on the 4-hour time frame, and it doesn't make sense to me no more. So let's do something like this. I can hide now. Let's do visibility and just take it off the 4 hours. So looking at it this way, knowing this is the area I'm working with, I'll step down to the hourly time frame and show you, because on the hourly time frame you should see a minor trend that is building up here. Once this trend gets violated, those are early signs for those pullbacks to come in. So you still want to buy if that trend is respected. So let's look at the hourly time frame. Let's see. Alright, cool. So I'll do something like this, and I'll show you what I'm looking at. So if I put a trend line here like this, so I know the early signs already on those other time frames, but price moved to the upside, there was a pullback, price moved to the upside, nice consolidation, price moved to the upside, there's still a pullback. So if price respects this trend line, you should expect prices to continue moving to the upside. And the only time when you stop buying, it's when this trend line gets violated. So if you get a violation of this trend line right here, then you want to pause a little bit. So normally before the trend line violates, you should see this buying and that inability to take out this area, then something like this. So there's still a possibility to buy US30, but we just have, I think, 2 hours to the end of the market week. So I'm just going to stand aside and watch what happens early next week. But US30, there's still a slight possibility to buy for these areas to get tested, and we still have this area of 43,000. So I won't be surprised if we have this buying again to the upside, and if that has to happen, it means the DXY is going to respect the second thing we was looking at, and that was in the range. So we had this move, this move, this move, pull back, sell. So option number 2 on the DXY. If this happens, then we'll be looking at this right here to take those buys all the way to 43,000. All right guys, that's it on US30. So let's look at one more pair. Let's look at NAS. I'm gonna clean this real quick. All right, NAS. Let's start on the daily time frame. I don't know, just looking at indices this time, it's very easy to analyze. It's not really complex. It's just the price action is very clean. Trust me, price action on this is very, very clean. So currently we're sitting above 20,000. So if I had to, let's modify this trend line. So I always keep 3 trend lines, psychological levels. I always keep 3 psychological levels on my chart. 1, 2, 3. Just I don't want to have a lot of levels on my chart because it makes it really crowded and it doesn't look clean. So let's go off of the psychological levels. I'm going to modify this because we're sitting above 20,000. So the next level has to be, let's say, 21. Now very easy analysis. All right, cool. So let's start here. First thing, price had an impulsive move. We saw this last week. Price dropped and price had another impulsive move. So going back to what I said last week, there is a possibility for this to pull back to this daily trend and for this to continue moving to the upside. I'll show you how you can use the DXY to gauge which move is going to happen easily. All right, so let's clean this. So going off of psychological levels, currently price is sitting above 20,000 right here. And if you combine this with another concept, the trend line, but let's go off of the psych level. Just using the psych level, if price finds it difficult to go through this area, and I'm talking like a consolidation thing can happen here where you see price spiking down, coming back up, spiking and ranging. If you see something like this, that is the principle, that is the concept around the psychological levels. You should expect these prices to test 21,000. So that's how I look at the psychological levels, and so this is how I'm looking at it on NAS100 on the daily time frame. Now let's say this price for some reason sells impulsively like this to the downside, then I'll look for a test of an area like this and then a continuation and a move back to this trend line. So that's something I'll look at, and if this happens, I'll start asking myself like, all right, if this is a pullback to this, just looking at it, a similar move, if this is a pullback to this trend line, what happens when price gets to this trend line? So this is the analysis I'm doing on the daily time frame, but as you step to lower time frames, you might have certain structures you can work with. But the macro picture, like the bigger picture, I like calling it the big boy move. So this is the highest time frame I look at. So if I can tell with all certainty that the big boys are trying to take prices all the way to 21,000, so a pullback here and price coming back to trade above this area means we're taking prices to 21,000. That's an easy thing to do and to analyze. So if I can tell that that's what those guys intend to do, so all I have to do is look at this piece of price action, tell when this price or this structure gets broken or violated, wait for this to pull back to an area like this, look at the reaction. So you look at this move, inability here, there's a move to the upside. You look at this move, inability here, there's a move to the upside. If I get the same thing, you get a pullback to an area like this as well. I get a pullback to an area like this, and that inability for prices to make those lows, then I'm taking prices all the way to 2100, and I'll be sat in this I think for a couple of days. Let me say 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10 11. So if price comes back here, and for us to get here, we should be taking about 11 to 12 days or 11 to 14 days to go through all of that. All right, cool. So that's what I'm looking at on the daily time frame. So when we step down to the lower time frame, we're looking at these principles. First, psychological level. A rejection at this level means taking prices to this area. And the break of this area doesn't mean we're selling all the way to 1900. It means watch how price gets to the trend line, and if it breaks out of this trend line, then you can say, all right, there's a possibility for us to move all the way to 19,000. So that's how I look at it. So let's step down to lower time frames and see if anything makes sense. So the first one is the 8-hour time frame. I'm going to put this on the 8-hour time frame. 8-hour time frame, and I still have my positions running on NAS100. If you remember, I think I have my stop loss. So this is the 8-hour time frame. I have my stop loss. I think here. Yeah, I have my stop loss around here. I showed you guys already when I did the market focus thing. So I have my stop loss here. So this is what we're working with on the 8-hour time frame, and it's quite easy and it's quite simple. So let's say, how is price moving on the 8-hour time frame? You have impulsive moves. I'll make this smaller. You have an impulsive move, you have a pullback. You have an impulsive move, you have a pullback. Now you can look at this as a pullback, you can call this a consolidation. It's the same thing. That's how price is moving. So now we had another impulsive move, and normally you should expect a pullback to this area to hold, but then price is breaking out of this area. So I won't be surprised if it does something like this to sell off, because this is an early indication. I'll show you something real quick. This is an early indication on the 8-hour time frame that sales might come in. So when you look at the trend line thing, and I know people trade trend lines differently and stuff like that, look at this trend line, look at it critically. Yeah, so every time we had a pullback to this area, you had, let's say, this range or this consolidation or this pullback taken out for an impulsive move. You had a range here, you had this area taken out with an impulsive move, but then at this area right here, so I'm going to zoom in, at this area we had prices coming back to the trend line. We had an attempt for prices to move up, and we just had this, and then now price is breaking out. So when I'm looking at the trend line, this is something I pay attention to, and I start asking questions. Why is it acting this way? Is this an early sign that sellers are going to come in? And if sellers are going to come in, how would these sellers take out this area? How would the sellers take out this area? If they take it out impulsively, I need to see how the buyers are coming. So these are the things I'm paying attention to. So currently I have my stops, I think, here and stuff like that. So I'm just going to sit and watch what happens. If this price comes down impulsively and takes me out, that's fine. I've secured this percentage already, I think almost 0.73. So at this point I think I'm running about 1.5 or 1 point, yeah, I think 1 point something, but the structure is what matters to me. So if this pulls back to the downside, this could be an indication that price is trying to fulfill the trend line on the daily time frame. So I'm going to show you 1 day. So you see that pullback means you could have a possibility for those prices to get here and for prices to move again to the upside. So when you're looking at these things, you need to pay attention to every detail, and that's how price moves. So how do we get involved on this NAS trade? So if you didn't take the buys already, if you didn't take the buys when prices got here, you missed out on this. You didn't take the buys, you missed out on this. So right now I'm going to tell you, pause with these buys, because just hold on, because pullback, inability to go up, break means pause. It doesn't mean the move to the upside is completed. No, it just means pause a little bit, let the sellers do their thing, and then you wait for another opportunity to see what's happening, maybe an alignment with a higher time frame for you to get involved. Now doesn't mean you can sell. If you see a selling opportunity, you could sell, but personally for me, I'm not going to sell. I'm just going to sit and watch what happens, manage my position, and take it from there. So that's what I'm looking on the 8-hour time frame. So this trend line has been taken out, early indications. So the 4-hour time frame might tell us something. Oh sorry, that was a 4-hour time frame. Let's see the 8 hours again. Oh yeah, I think I went directly, yeah, so that was the 8-hour time frame. Then the 4-hour time frame showed me more. So once you move down to the hourly time frame, you'll see this perfectly. You'll see what's happening there perfectly. So on the hourly time frame, you can study this consolidation as well, and that's something I'll look at. So let's step down to 1 hour. All right, cool. So you see where my stop loss is at. So you see where my stop loss is. So my stop loss is right here, and I have an alert thing on it. So that was the trend line thing I was looking at. So I was looking at this trend line. I still had my trade playing out up until this point. We've had this inability for prices to go to the upside, and we've had prices breaking out. So currently we're trading outside the trend line, and that's an indication for me already that prices could step to the downside. But the reason I'm still holding this is because of this psychological level right here. So I want to see what happens on this psychological level, because we could bounce off of this level and see prices taking out this high. It's still possible. So I'm still keeping my positions open. So let's see what happens around the psychological level. If price goes below it, without a doubt, I can tell you we're headed towards the daily trend line. So let's do something like this. So on the DXY, if this guy keeps dropping just like what it's doing right now, to respect this trend and not the range, so we can take out this area to respect this trend and not this range, so we can take out this area and possibly test this area, then you could see the stuffs on NAS taking another attempt to buy to the upside, maybe to take out this area. So if you're not in the trade already, I won't just trade off of this. I'm not going to trade off of this psychological level. I'll be a little bit cautious. Today is Friday, by the way, and wait for Monday to come in, give it a couple of hours, see what's happening, watch the fundamental event that's going to be released. That could probably move price as well. So those are things I look out for. So overall on NAS, I'm just going to step to say one day, do this real quick. So on the daily thing on NAS, overall I'm looking at this pullback and for prices to continue to the upside, or price maintains this move right here, price maintains this move and continues to the upside. So that's what I'm looking at on NAS. Alright, cool. So let's hurry and do the S&P. Let's do the S&P. So let's see, S&P500. So because this move is similar to NAS, I'm not really going to waste time on the S&P as well. So on the daily time frame, we had this move, we had a pullback, we had this move. Eventually you should expect these sales to come in. It's inevitable. You should expect these sales to come in. At one point you should expect the sales to come in on the S&P. So looking at it on the daily time frame, we almost tested this area of 5800. We didn't really clip at that area, but on the 8-hour time frame, I know there's a trend thing building up here. So I'm going to look at that on the 8-hour time frame to see if it's violated, because if it gets violated, you should expect prices to test 5700 and test this trend line, for prices to go to the upside or a break, and for prices to drop to the downside. It's a similar thing that's happening on NAS100, so there's no reason for me to spend a lot of time on the S&P. So 8-hour time frame real quick. So I had this trend line here, price move, pull back, move, pull back, move, pull back. We're currently trading outside because this was a trend line I was looking at, just continuing to the 5800. We're currently trading outside that trend line, so I'll be a little bit cautious with this one as well, because if price finds it difficult to go above 5800 or to even test 5800, we could see sales coming in all the way to 5700 and to deliver to the daily trend line thing. So those are all possibilities I'm looking at. On the 4-hour time frame, keep it simple and clean, quick. Same thing, price is trading outside this trend line. It's a very messy price action right now on the S&P 500. very big possibilities for those sales to come in as pullbacks to deliver on the daily trend line thing, and there's still a possibility for us to test 5800. So right now the S&P 500, I have a trade on this, and I think my stop loss is right here. So I'm just going to watch this. I'm going to watch this. I'm going to manage my position. I'm not taking any other entries. I'm just watching this to see what's going to happen, and I don't think there's a need for me to look at the hourly. So the big picture here is what matters to me, what's happening on the daily time frame. The levels I'm looking at: 5800, 5700, and this trend line. So this move is what I'm looking at. So just being patient, manage the position I have already. If price reverses and takes me out, that's fine, but eventually this move should slow down. So you see what happened here. You had this impulse, you had this correction, and this move. You could expect the same thing, a correction and a drop, for this to happen. So I'm going to clean this and do it real quick. Impulse, correction, drop, impulse, slow, look for that correction, drop. So that's something I'm looking at, and that's something that could happen. So you could wait for this correction to come in. If you see something like this, once you see a correction happening here, just remember a similar thing happened here, and what happened after that, you had the move to the upside. So if that happens as well, you should expect this to happen. So that's my analysis on the S&P, and let's look at the last one, the last pair, and that's gold. So we'll start on the daily time frame. Very interesting pair. If you look at it from the bigger point, gold has been making new highs. That's good, that's quite interesting. So going off of psychological levels, what level are we playing off of? Price went through 2600, and I was expecting prices to test 2700. Now, is there a possibility for prices to test 2700? Yes, there's still a possibility for these prices to test 2700. Now, how do we get involved in a situation like this? First of all, you need to understand price is trending right now. There is a high, there's a low, there's a high, there's a low, there's a high. So we should expect a low to come in and test this trend line for us to continue this move to the upside, and that is just going off of trend lines. Now if you're going off of psychological levels, we went through 2600, so we should test 2700. Now combining what the psych levels are telling you, we're expecting prices to go to the upside. You combining that with the trend line, we're expecting these prices to go to the upside. So those are two things playing in the same direction. So all we're waiting for is this pullback here, and then for us to look for buys again to take out these highs and test this psychological level. If price gets to an area like this and it finds it difficult to take out these highs, then you could see some sales coming in temporarily, and that's what I'm looking at on gold. So there's not a lot you can do. Let's look at the 8-hour time frame. Let's see. So on the 8-hour time frame, you see the sales coming in already. So real quick, yeah. So you have a pullback thing, pullback, impulse, pullback, impulse. You should expect the pullback, and I think the 8-hour time frame shows you already. So you having this pullbacks coming in, and this is impulsive, man. Like this is looking really aggressive. So this move to the downside. So this should continue till we get to this area, and then a move like this. So, and that's what I was telling you. If you look at, say, the DXY, so now possibility number one, going off of the range thing I was looking at, there's a range here, going off of this, if price finds it difficult to sell, you should expect this price is moving back to the upside, and maybe just 50% before that inability as well. But if you just go off of this inability, you should expect prices to move to the upside. Now using this, you can look at gold and expect those pullbacks to come in. That's something that can fuel these pullbacks to come in. So that's what I'm looking at on gold. So how do you get involved in a situation like this? Let's look at, say, the 4-hour time frame. 4-hour time frame. So I just got stopped out on this position. 4-hour time frame. Now there's an early indication for sales already, so let's look at this early indication. Price move, price move, price move to the upside. Now we have a violation. So now we've had this violation. This is an early sign that sales are going to come in. So you could see prices pulling back, and then you see sales. So those are all possibilities. And remember, we have a daily trend line for us to test. So that's something you really want to pay attention to, the daily trend line. So the 4-hour time frame shows you this violation. This is just an indication like, hey, pause. Yeah, like, hey, pause. I'm looking at this, I'm like, hey, there could be a possibility of a sales to come in, but don't get really excited like this guy, because this sales could come in, align what's happening on the daily time frame, and then buyers kick in again. So that's something I'm looking at. So let's look at, say, the hourly time frame. So you look at the hourly time frame. I just got stopped out on this right here. So currently price is making lower lows and lower highs on the hourly time frame. You can consider this on the pullback, and this is it. So if this is a trend line thing, you want to work with this and keep selling till you get to the daily area. You pause and see if the buyers are going to kick in. So if you really want to sell, if you want to get involved in this position, I'll probably say just do temporary sales, but be very careful because the buyers can step in anytime. So do temporary sales, and watch the daily time frame, because when price reacts on the daily trend line, you could expect buyers to step in, and that's something I'll be looking out for. All right, guys, so that's it for gold. And remember, gauge what's happening on the DXY. Use the DXY to help you. So let me show you this. This is the hourly time frame. Use this principle on the DXY. We have a range here, and there's two possibilities. We have a trend line here. So possibility number one, if this sells right now from this trend line, find it difficult to take out these lows, and let's just say it ends here and you see prices moving this way, that's possibility number one. Expect those pullbacks on all those other pairs. Just expect the pullbacks. Now possibility number two, if this continues, it's moved to the downside to take out this area, then we could test an area like this, 100 flat, and this is possibility number two. And you remember, on those other pairs you could expect the continuation or move again to the upside. So that's it for the DXY. Two possibilities. Use these possibilities properly. The cycle level, I'm looking at 101, 100, the trend line and the range. Those are three concepts, I think: cycle levels, range, trend line. So three things I'm looking at just to help me make a decision. So use this like to do your analysis as well. And I hope you find tradable opportunities next week. I'm still holding my positions. Hopefully we can squeeze a little bit more profits before the reversals take me out. And I'll keep you guys updated, guys. Be patient and stay consistent. And if you found this interesting, don't forget, hit that like and subscribe button. See you during the next one. Bye for now.